Well, wait until we get going. We'll call this committee of the whole meeting to order on September 24th, 2024 at 6:03 PM. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Okay, is there anybody like to speak under public participation today? For the record, there is no public participation. The first item up on the agenda this evening is item number 4, website design for the city of Lincoln and print digital, Cale West. Cale, did you want to step forward? And while he's doing that, for the council's benefit, there is a memo in your packet. The city clerk and I met with Mr. West and his staff a couple times. The first meeting, we presented the fact that we were looking to get a website redesign, what we were looking for, which would include like migration of data. We wanted a new modern look and feel, things like that, and we can get into it. And then we had a follow-up, and Mr. West presented a mock-up of what the website could look like. And so we'll turn the TV on and share that with you, and then Cale can walk us through.
Yeah, if you guys want to, on the top left there, where it has like, yeah, right there, it'll pull in like the desktop version of the site.
You just tell me what you want to do, and we'll walk
Yeah,
through
if
it.
go ahead and if you want to just scroll down a little bit. So basically, just kind of have an about section there. Going further down, having like some, I can't remember I don't have my notes on me, so I can't remember which specific category was what when we had last talked. But basically, if you just want to slowly go,
I think
through
this
the
would be
site.
like news articles and
Yeah,
things that
that's
we
what it
publish
was.
for the
things
community.
that were happening.
Yeah,
Then
and then here's other events and happenings and things that are going on.
and then just keep on going down. There was like something to kind of encourage tourism. That can kind of link over to either the current tourism or we can build out our own stuff. And then that would have the government transparency section in there.
So in government transparency, we could have agendas and things of that nature, financial reports, department head reports, the things that we publish on the website frequently.
And then if you want to go all the way up to the top, then we just scroll all the way up.
Okay.
In that entire navigation bar up there, it just went through and kind of organized where everything currently is, and then cleaned up a few different parts as what the city has on their site right now. None of those are actually functional
Yeah, I wasn't
buttons.
gonna
It's
click on
just
So I was
for a visual.
just doing it for a visual. So yeah,
But yeah.
you want me to show the mobile and the other responsive versions?
Yeah, those you can. They're not fully like optimized out, so they may look kind of weird. But yeah, whenever we build a site, if you click on the all device section up there, whenever we build a site out, we are optimizing it for mobile, desktop, tablet. 90% of users are using their phone, so we want to make sure that which this is actually something that local people have told me for years of like it's so difficult to navigate on the phone and different things like that. So that's something we would really want to like optimize everything for. And if you click on the mobile device up on the top there, then it should pop up. So you have Apple, Android, and then sideways. So we're going to be checking, like making sure that it's actually formatted and not like overlapping or cutting things off. And then if you click that little, right there, I don't know what you'd call that. There you go. Spins it sideways. So, yeah, happy to answer any questions or.
Questions from the council? Ms. Rolfs and then Mr. Bateman.
Sorry.
Oh, no worries.
Why don't we have City Hall in there?
This is just a rough mock-up we put together just for a visual. And that was just non-blurry photo we were able to pull off Google. So I think there is a City Hall photo somewhere in there, but it was pretty fuzzy, so that's why we just didn't put that on there. But yeah, whenever like we go to actually build everything out, we'll make sure that there's proper photography for every single part of the site.
Mr. Bateman?
Well, I've been saying this for years. I said it when I was across the street that our websites were not modern and easy to navigate, especially when you're doing research and you go to other cities and it's just like butter that you can go through. So I appreciate Cal doing this for us. The question I would have, and I'm hope I'm correct, that this would be interactive. Like we could have a section like we have a third Friday on Friday night, so Monday someone could upload pictures from the previous third Friday or the barbecue event or balloons or just about anything. So when people say what's going on in the city of Lincoln, they can see the calendar of what's coming up, but also see what just happened so they
Yeah.
can make plans. Okay.
Yeah, we can build that out, whether it's like the city reaching out to us and our support team, and we go in and do it for you guys, or and we discuss that of having specific city logins, so employees at the city can actually go in and edit things as well, and there'll be trainings on all that.
Ms. McClellan?
Is there a chance we could see some of your other websites that you've done? Just
Yeah.
give us some links so we can kind of
Yeah.
look and see
Yeah, I
what's
can.
possible.
Do you want me to just email it to you guys?
Sure.
That'd be great.
Do you know any off the top of your head?
Yeah, locally ones. We're actually working on the Park District right now. That one's not published yet. Another one would be Community Action Capsule.
Is it published?
Yeah, that one is capsule.info. I believe we have like a before and after on that one. Not sure, that might be their
Throw
security.
some of your Ford Motor Company ones in there because that's a big that's a big deal for you.
Actually-
and those what you do for Ford is amazing. So
That's their old URL. Sorry. Just type in Community Action Lincoln, Illinois. I can't remember which one it is because I know they had like 3 different ones. Should be .info. Right at the top.
Yeah, that's one we were just on.
There it is.
Good.
And then you can just X that out.
Okay.
And yeah, that's then we have a few other local ones, some that we're still building out as well. But regardless, I can happy to share some.
That's wonderful.
This is-
Thank you.
Yeah, that's pretty nice.
I did have another question.
Yeah.
I do not know what AutoEye integration means. It was something on your proposal, I think, and it was called AutoEye integration. Does that sound familiar?
Is it in the packet?
I've had so many
Robin,
meetings
do you
since the last
know
time we
where in the,
talked.
No, that's okay.
right under hosting, it would be his 3 bullet points: website hosting management, AutoEye,
the
integration.
audio eye integration?
Oh, okay, yeah, that is that's basically a plug-in for accessibility. So yeah, hearing impaired, if visually being able to increase text, different things like that. So that's a company that we've used to where we plug it into our web development platform. So then we can kind of, the front user can manipulate the site to make it like changing the colors or the text and the sizes to be able to either hear or read it easier for them.
Alderman Parrott?
And I think that's mandatory if you use state funding
Yeah.
of any sort to make it ADA
Yeah.
accessible or
Yeah.
whatever.
If you notice on the bottom there, they have an ADA compliant notice, so that would be something. I think the city has one on the bottom of their site, but regardless, we definitely want to make sure that that's on there as well.
Ms. McClellan?
I just wondered what the relationship will be afterwards for support. Are you guys going to be available to us if we have
Yeah.
questions? And is that like a 24/7 thing? Or
Yeah, so that's part of the hosting. So if you guys need any assistance or anything like that, you send our web team an email. We're actually, when we push out our new site for us specifically, there's going to be a live chat on there to where people can do a ticket system. So it's a little bit even easier. I would say it's not fully 24/7, but pretty much. We have minus major holidays, but I mean, we still have admins checking things. So if there is an emergency, we're always happy to jump on and help.
Yeah, something else I think is important to share. When they did an analysis of the website, I think it was 77 pages,
Something like that. Yeah.
something like almost 80 pages that we have on our website that they're going to have to build in some way, shape, or form. Also, currently in today's world, we have a lot of old meeting minutes on our current city website. Ms. Bateman, since we got our new codifying system, has been putting them in the new system. So they live in two places right now. Part of the ask of Kale and his team was to port the stuff from the old website over to the new codified system, so it's all in one place. So, yeah, if you look at the money, because we knew this question would come up, we felt that $16,275 was a reasonable ask and comparable to other things that we've seen out there, especially given the amount of work that is going to be entailed in doing this. There's another feature that we've asked for as well, for elected officials and others to be able to log into the website and be able to see things that would be specific to your job, such as training and things of that nature. Obviously, we want to be as transparent as possible, but that would just be an option that would be available. That functionality is actually on our current website. It's just not heavily used. Ms. McClellan?
I noticed in the proposal that you didn't think there'd have to be any customization either. If there does something comes up where later on we're gonna have to customize, and how do we figure out what we're gonna pay for that and things
Yeah.
like that?
So with that, actually, when we were further discussing, we kind of figured out, hey, this might be better to custom, like build some type of integration to port that data. So we're actually actively looking into that to see if we can. And I told Peggy and Tracy both that we would just, like, we're here locally. We want to support the city as well. So it shouldn't take that much, regardless whether we have to do it manually or build something to do that. Outside of that, though, in the future, with that web support monthly hosting, we discount our hourly rate if it does ever exceed what we do within that monthly support by 50%. And then also, if we ever in the future want to do like redesign or anything like that, we can span it out over across multiple months to make it fit within that monthly support, or we'll work with everybody on the price since it's on that web support hosting.
Okay. Any other questions for Kale? Mr. Gonzo?
Thank you, Mayor. And I may have overlooked this in here somewhere, but it talks about the $125 hosting fee or manage fee. How long is that good for?
So you have to pay for hosting anywhere you put a site. So that's for as long as the site's live. Like, that is us supporting that site on a monthly basis, making sure that upkeep is there. If you guys need additional pages or things updated through the site or trainings with anybody, new hire comes on board and you get, like, that new hire has questions, we're there for all of that.
But that amount is in perpetuity then?
Yeah. Unless there's some fees over years, like, I'll be honest with you, like, we use AWS servers, which 99% of the world does, and throughout COVID, they've raised our rates 3 different times, and I refuse to raise our rates. I'm sure in like 10 years, I'm probably gonna have to, but yeah, but it's not gonna be like next year, be like, hey, now it's 200. Like, I don't like doing business like that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Any other questions? Place this on the regular agenda? Okay, place that on the regular agenda. Thanks,
you.
Kale. Okay, the next item up is requests for design for a community pavilion, 8th Street Park. Ms. Matoko.
All right, I am looking to move forward with the design cost portion. I don't know if you've read through this. I know that there's some concerns about, or some talk about the placement of the pavilion. But I looked at a couple of the spaces that we had available, and the 8th Street is the central location, and you have a bunch of four-way stops. It allows for, you know, if we have a community event like family movie night, or, you know, if we have a band or something, some community event going on, it allows for like children that may not be able to be accompanied by their parents to safely come, you know, through the sidewalks, the stops, or the four-way stops around there. There's 3 schools around there. There's it will be wheelchair accessible. We're about to do the sidewalk project over there. And so I was just wanting to move forward with the engineering costs,
And for the record, that's how much?
$32,000.
Alderman Parrott.
So just, I know we had the movie night, and I was there for part of that. And I know that the speakers, they weren't blasting the movie sound at all. And so I don't know that it disturbed any of the residents, quite a few residents around the area there. You mentioned perhaps like a band or something. Would that be mostly during the day or like in the evening? I think it could get maybe loud there, perhaps.
It would be like an early evening.
And have we gotten any input perhaps from any of the community residents about, you know, potential sounds, you know, the loudness of maybe a band in the evening there? I live just 3 blocks to the north, and I can hear the bands, you know, somewhat from the downtown. If something's playing there, I don't know if that's going to disturb the residents, you know, if it's going to be played the same loudness as it is downtown. Just something to kind of think about, maybe discuss.
Well, I think anywhere you were to put a pavilion, you're going to run into, you know, that if you're going to have a band anywhere. If it's in a residential area, it's going to be the same no matter where you're at. But I did get some feedback. There was a couple of the neighbors that came to the family movie night, and they thought it was great, and they said that it was really good to have events, you know, over there. And I told them that we had, you know, plans to do more movie nights. So, I mean, they were happy about that. I don't know about the band portion of it,
Yeah.
but I think that you're going to have that anywhere you have a band.
Right. That's why I'm just bringing up the concern, because there's more residents that live there than there are in the downtown area. And if they go like 9, 10 o'clock at night, that could be an issue.
I think it would be up to the council to set the parameters of the use of that park.
Yeah.
And not only bands, but when we were talking about this pavilion early on, it could also be used for theater. It could be used for our movie nights if we could pull a screen down and somehow attach it there. It could be-
Educational purposes, like the schools can come down, sit under the pavilion. You see that a lot in communities. I've seen it a lot posted that they, you know, teachers will bring their class down. They'll sit under, you know, and have an door class for the day.
I mean,
And
I
it's close.
I enjoyed the band that played out here at the park over here, you know, and
Yeah.
that was nice. I'm just don't know if the residents are aware of the potential for a band and, you know, like 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock at night. That might be an issue.
Alderman Bateman.
So I like the concept, but in someone who's constantly trying to find a stage, another alternative to building a permanent amphitheater is the city consider buying a portable stage. I know during the Balloon Festival, we have a difficult time trying to find and rent one. And talking with some residents and other people that organize events and people that live here in town, a portable stage might be a better investment for the city because we could use it for all of our events. Plus, there's the income it would bring in as in the Fair Queen, they rent a stage. The band at the fairgrounds rents a stage. We rent a stage for our event. And in shopping around for stages for our event, these things go for $1,400 to $1,800 a weekend plus mileage. So I know, and I know of a used one that might be coming up for sale, the city of Bloomington, because they're purchasing a newer one. It might be a consideration to purchase something like that where we could actually mobilize it, use it in more locations, and actually get some income for the city. Since we are centrally located, we would then have the stage that was available to Peoria, Decatur. They don't have one anymore. It got wrecked, and that's something to consider. As far as 8th Street, we can pull it up on 8th Street just like we did the tables that we did the movie on, which we attended. It was very nice. Lighting was perfect. Sound was perfect. Tracy killed the generator once. That was,
Wasn't me.
but I think it's something that the city might consider instead of a permanent structure.
Thoughts?
Isn't there a liability to that, written it out?
Yes, I mean, it's just when we rent it out, we have to provide insurance to the company we're renting it from, that we're insuring it, and of course they have insurance on it also. So there is residual expense, but there is also, I think it would be much less than building a permanent structure, and there's the possibility of generating some funds with it when we're not using it.
And who's gonna set it up, like for our events, you know? At least with the pavilion, you know, we can have a screen that we can pull down for movie nights, or, I mean, with the stage, like when I checked into it, we were gonna try to apply for a grant to purchase, or to look into one. There's a lot of setup to it.
The ones that we've rented, the city or company brings it in, parks it, we help them park it. They hit a few buttons, it's all hydraulic, they set it up, unhook their truck, and they drive away.
But if we
It's-
purchase one, then it'll be us doing that instead.
Correct, that's part of the rental, is set up and tear down.
Yeah. Who's doing
He's
that?
asking who's doing that. Are you going to have to pay a union employee to do that?
On top of
at their
paying the
rate?
insurance for it?
I can find out more information. I just brought it forward tonight, people. It's not like I'm ready to vote in 5 minutes. I'm just bringing it forward before we go down a rabbit hole, that it might be an alternative, because it would have more uses than a permanent structure that's sitting there. That's all I'm considering.
Ms. Rolfs?
Ashley, are we looking at using a grant for this?
I can possibly put in for grants, but I have to have the engineering part of it done
Okay.
in order to submit for grants. We have like the T-Mobile grant, the hometown one, you know, this is something that I could apply for, but
Would we be able to use something like that with a portable?
the one that the grant we just checked into, it ended up not qualifying, so that's why I didn't move forward with it.
I think if you're gonna compare what Ms. Metelko is presenting versus what Mr. Bateman has presented, you have to ask yourself the question, what do you envision that looking like? Do you want a permanent structure that is multi-purposed on that lot, or do you want something that is portable? That could be used by,
Maintenance would be a question I'd have.
you're gonna have maintenance
You
on
want-
both.
Once that's there, I don't see Walt.
Walt's out enjoying the birth of his grandchild.
Oh, well.
I don't think it'd be any different than any of the other pavilions at the other parks, like Mayfair and,
You'd have to deal with, on a permanent structure, I'm not trying to be a Debbie Downer here. On a
Hey, ask the
permanent
question,
structure,
though.
you're gonna have to deal with vandalism and maintenance. So, I'm just saying that. We got basketball hoops in this town, you can't keep a net on for more than 20 minutes. that's, you know, we've got brand new city benches and stuff that's been vandalized. They were there less than a week.
Where's it gonna be stored?
Well, the street and alley's got all kinds of room.
So you're
It's
proposing,
it's an enclosed trailer when it's, so I guess nobody's seen it when the ones we rent. When they come to town, they look like a semi-trailer. They're all enclosed. They set the standards down. We hook the power up to it. The legs come out, the sides fold down, the top raises up. You decide whether you want to back this way or back that way. But as you would not need to store it inside. It literally is a trailer. I'm sitting here looking up some. They range in price from 30 to 75,000, depend on what you're shooting for. So I think we should, you know, again, it's just a thought.
Is there a warranty for so many years that that's gonna be good, or?
I'll have to do more research, but I'm assuming there would be a warranty, yes. Bloomington is selling theirs because they rent theirs out so often, they want a bigger one, so.
Mr. Eimer, and then Mr. Parrott.
You think the total cost, engineering, building it, everything's gonna be on this? Got a rough idea?
The last time we had a conversation about it, it roughly was looking at 194,000.
Total? And you're saying we can buy a brand new one for 70?
70 was a Cadillac.
What she's proposing is
I
a
know.
permanent structure. His
I
is,
know.
yeah.
But, you know, I almost gotta agree with my colleague here that, which is rare. But,
Does it hurt?
the only thing he does, yeah, let's write that down. Let's make, he's got a good point about it as far as, I don't know about renting it to other people, but, maybe the fairground or something, but now it's movable, it's different locations. If we're gonna spend $194,000 down there, I'd rather see us spend $194,000 for the top of the line mobile one. Maybe, I mean, it is something to think about.
Yep.
There's a lot of research to be done on what I'm proposing. So I have no problem doing the research. I can look into it. I was intrigued because unlike what people think, I don't throw the Balloon Fest together on the weekend before the Balloon Fest. I'm currently booking bands, stages, doing electrical work, and in doing so, I happen to, the one we got this year was very expensive. I happened to call Bloomington Normal because they had one. It was booked last year, and in the conversation with the young lady, she brought up the fact that theirs would be for sale. So I started asking the question. I've only talked to the city of Bloomington. How often do you rent it out? What is your fee structure? They structure their fee differently if it's local versus taking it out of town. There's daily and weekend rates and this kind of stuff. As far as the setup and stuff, every municipality is a union. I'm just assuming, I will call tomorrow and find out whether a park district employee is the one who brings. When we rented from Decatur, it was a park district employee from Decatur, brought it with a park district truck, dropped it, set it up, drove away, and they came back and picked it up. So, yes, I'm assuming that $1,700 plus mileage, is 64 cents a mile at Bloomington, is the price of. Let's face it, it wouldn't be good business if they didn't build in everything to the price of the rent. So I can do some more research.
Ms. Matoko and then Mr. Parrott.
Okay, so as far as the cost goes, I mean, we can get the engineering done for the 32,000, which we already have a line for. And so that takes away from that cost. We have some ARPA funds left out of the parks too. And so that also could be put towards it. So and I can apply for the T-Mobile grant, which is up to $50,000. Not that I'm not sure that we would get approved for it, but I could, put in for that. So that would take down the cost. It wouldn't be that whole amount.
Get the, yeah, I know what you're saying.
Mhm.
Yep. Mr. Parrott and then Mr. Downs.
Yeah, I've seen that that Bloomington trailer, mobile trailer. My church uses it during the month of June. We have an outside services over there in Normal, and it's a nice looking trailer, and it works well. I don't know if it'd be nice to know to get the size of that trailer per se, of what we would like and what the dimensions are of yours, and if it would meet the needs of the intentions, you know, of a permanent versus one that's mobile, and so forth. So I think, yeah, more research would be nice.
Mr. Downs.
Okay, there's a question I don't know if you're gonna have the answer to, Kevin. But so Ashley proposed this structure to be put in the middle of A Street Park. Would the portable trailer, those have to stay on the road, right? We couldn't put those in the grass. We can
Pull it right up into the grass.
It won't sink in or hurt anything.
No, and quite honestly, we could pour a small concrete pad that's built just for that stage and put it there if that became a problem. But we were driving trucks and food trucks on the 8th Street lot Friday night. So obviously you'd have to reconsider something if it was a monsoon rain Monday through Friday, and then you're driving up there. But that's a small hill to climb. I will try to do as much research as I can between now and Monday night. I'm not saying remove this from the agenda. I'm saying give me some time to do some research.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Mr. Rawls, did you have a question?
When we look at how we determine what the need for a pavilion is, I'm not sure if we've necessarily done that, but once you have that, who's going to be responsible for scheduling, who's going to be there? I mean, you just can't just assume that you're going to be able to walk over there and have it. I assume we're going to have a schedule somewhere of people that might want to use it, how many times it's going to be used, and who would do that?
Ms. Metelko.
I'm the one that puts on the event.
Currently, as it stands, because we've had this question about parks, people have wanted to reserve parks. The parks are, there is no reserve process for those. They're first come, first serve on the parks. This might be a little bit different, but I could see that falling under her purview to ensure that there's not overbooking. Multiple people aren't trying to schedule events at the same time.
When you go to different towns, you see these pretty pavilions or like the amphitheaters and stuff. We do not have that. So I was kind of looking into something nice for the community, something, you know, that could be used by everybody. The mobile stage does not allow for, you know, families to have like a birthday party up there or any community use, you know, when we're not doing an event. That mobile
Will we have
stage
to
doesn't
do
allow for
park
that.
benches and things like that then also with that?
What do you mean? With the pavilion? Just picnic
Well, yeah, if I'm
table?
gonna go have a birthday party, I probably want to sit down.
Well,
We have picnic tables
yeah,
already.
we have picnic tables.
Mr. Eimer and then Mr. Bateman.
Actually, you say other towns have these permanent ones. Do you know what towns? Do we have photos of other stuff that we can at least get a comparison?
Bloomington has a very nice one. Decatur has a nice one. Sherman has, you know, their
Are they on their websites or something?
oh, if you look up any of their parks, you can see that.
Mr. Bateman.
So in booking some bands, I called the city of Sherman 2 weeks ago. I had this conversation with the mayor because we have mutual friends that go down there all the time for the ones at Sherman to see how much some of the bands cost to book for those. The city of Sherman, according to their city engineer or city manager, they budget $270,000 a year for their amphitheater. But they also make money on concessions, parking, tickets. So obviously they're not breaking even, or they wouldn't budget $270,000 just for the amphitheater. I don't think we're nowhere near the aspect of that park in Sherman. I would love to be, because it's beautiful. We go down there all the time to walk. Again, I'm not killing Mrs. Metelko's idea. I do want something on 8th Street. I'm on the Parks Committee. We've talked about 8th Street a million times. A splash pad is number one on everybody's mind when they think of something for kids to do. Wiffle ball fields have come up and stuff. I'm just saying this might be an alternative to that.
Is this the park?
Yeah.
The last time I seen a estimate for the
Sherman.
splash pad, it was about $993,000.
And the proposal that Ms. Metelko has put together does not include all of this concrete around it. It's just the pavilion itself. And there's a example in the packet. I mean, it's pretty straightforward and simple.
I mean, that's the roof, right? We're gonna raise it. You don't wanna see a band on flat. That's the problem with
Correct.
Third Friday, the band's standing in the street.
You're gonna have to, because 8th Street lot, no matter what you do, even if you do the portable, it's uneven. You're gonna have to level it up.
We would make a raised concrete pad and then put that roof on top of it, correct?
Correct.
So that it's literally a permanent stage.
Correct.
We have options. I mean, I have a whole packet to go through, but I mean,
So
there's different designs and
So because Ms. Metelko's ran with this, can you work with her on this project, Mr. Bateman?
Tracy, can I say something?
Shane? Go ahead.
So this company from the packet is Polygon. They're a pre-engineered structure manufacturer. Their local rep is in Morton. I'm guessing they'd be more than happy and come down here and talk to whoever about different options. They were very responsive when we reached out to them to try and get, a rough cost. And they have, if you go to their website, they have a lot of different options as well. So
Okay.
just throwing that out as an option. I can forward that information if you want the
Can you
contact
forward it to
information.
Ms. Metelko? So question for the council, do you want to put this on the agenda next week, or do you want to bring it back to the next cow?
Yeah, can we at least research both ways?
Sure.
and get a better decision?
Yep. Okay. We'll bring it back
Okay.
at the next cow. Okay. Thank you, everybody. Okay. Okay, the next item up is Economic Development Commission grant approval for a community action partnership of Central Illinois. Amount requested $7,500 for roof replacement. Ms. Rolfs?
Yes. I know on your agenda, you'll see where the commission approved that last Friday. I abstained from voting on that because I wanted to do some more research. And I did. I also I used to have a partner on that committee, and I could throw things back and forth with her. Since she's not there, I decided I would throw it out to you guys, and you could just look at it and see what, kind of weigh in on what I'm thinking. Now, as we know, the structural grant that we have been using basically has been awarded to, let's say, building owners and the businesses that go into it. Those building owners and businesses are typically profit-oriented. So they want to make money on that. And they have to in order to make a living. We also look at that as a kind of an investment in our downtown, in our community, and an enhancement to what's going on, and basically more involvement. My question came when I looked at the grant that was requested, and the agency that has that is a charity. They have charity status. Usually with they are not-for-profit. They do things that to get money. Most of the time, that's from government entities, and they do that through subsidies. So their whole goal, to me, is not necessarily economic development per se, other than in improving some of the social areas within the community. We know that Capsule is extremely important in our community, and we value them being here and what they do for our community. But when I look at the grant and I think of what we have commonly had or have been doing in past practice, is to award this to profit-making individuals. And that's not their goal. So I need some thoughts back and forth as to whether or not we move forward with this $7,500 and it would go to a charitable organization and not to a profit-making business or building owner.
Alderman Bateman.
So I'm glad Mrs. Ross brought this up, because as soon as I seen it on the packet, my first thought was, no way. And I'm going to tell you why. I agree that we started this program to help private business owners to improve their buildings, to help offset some of the costs to keep the buildings from becoming dilapidated. And as much as good work comes out of community action, they are funded by taxpayer dollars, grants, and that such, subsidies. So I have a very difficult time awarding taxpayer dollars to a entity that is funded by taxpayers. I brought this up to the mayor earlier this week, having one of our discussions, and he brought up, well, we awarded a grant to the Lincoln Women's Club. I was trying to hurry up and do some research. Does the Lincoln Women's Club pay property taxes? I don't know that off the top of my head.
I would assume so, but I'd have to look it up.
Well, that's what I was trying to do, but because we're not voting tonight anyway. I know it sounds crazy, but when we award these $7,500 grants and the property becomes better, let's face it, we run the Lincoln government off taxpayer dollars. So that building or whatever that we've helped improve, their assessed value goes up. Does it take 60, 70 years to get our $7,500 back? Absolutely. But it is getting the money back in the long run in the scheme of things. I just, right now, if we were voting tonight, I would be a no vote, just based on the fact that their entire entity is based on grants and subsidies from taxpayers, and I don't feel it right that we're taking City of Lincoln taxpayer dollars and giving it to another government entity to spend on their building.
Mr. Parrott.
Kevin, do you, in your experience, does replacing a roof increase the value, the assessable value for tax purposes?
I'm assuming it does. Yes.
I'm just.
We don't have an assessor here, but I mean that's.
I know. I'm just
the
thinking
whole point of getting a permit, because it puts it on the radar that.
Well, yeah, I'm just thinking
improving
if I
the
put my house
property.
up for sale, and it has a 20-year-old roof on it, am I taxed less? Or if I put a new roof on it, am I going to be taxed more?
You'll be taxed more. Yeah, you will. Capsule? They're a non-profit. Mr. Conzo.
Some nonprofits are tax exempt and others are not. There's a process with it. For example, all these things are done separately. A nonprofit can apply to the IRS for federal tax exemption. That's all it gives them is federal tax exemption. They apply to to their state, to the state of Illinois for sales tax exemption, so that when they buy, you know, stuff they need for their nonprofit, the things they buy are tax exempt, but that's granted separately as well. Property tax is also applied, they have to apply for that separately. It goes through the county assessor and then goes to the Illinois Department of Revenue. Having one of those things does not necessarily mean you'll have the others, and I was involved with a nonprofit where that was the case, where we had federal income tax, state income tax exemption, we had sales tax exemption, but at least as of the time that I left the board, that they were not able to get property tax exemption, so it doesn't necessarily follow that they would be. However, it's possible that they are, and I see the city attorney assiduously looking up something there. I'm assuming that's what he's looking for, but, so, I mean, it's something you can't assume. My point is, it's something you have to find out, because it isn't something that's automatic.
Logan County Property Tax Search returns that they are tax exempt. So while you do that, I'll share my thoughts that I shared in the Economic Development Commission meeting. The purpose and intent of the program, when it started, was to ensure that the buildings that we had in our community, commercial properties, were continued to be in good shape, and they would be eligible for these grants so that the property owners could be incentivized to put more money into their building. Yes, we're very fortunate that a lot of the businesses throughout the community that have got these grants have done so. They've created new businesses, rental space, opportunities. Capsule is not a government entity, in my opinion. They run off of government grants, but that doesn't make them a government entity. They do, however, heavily invest in our community. They have training programs. They help people that are low income and a number of other programs. And when you look at the overall economic development approach, people is part of economic development. We have to grow our community. We have to create opportunities for our individuals, and they're doing that. They're asking for this grant because they have fell short in the grants that they've been able to get, and this building issue with the roof happened. They're about I think it's $20,000 short approximately. So they came to the city council. They applied. They didn't come and ask for 50% of what they owe. We encouraged them to apply for this grant. They have gone to the county and asked for a match at the county. I think they asked for $10,000 or something of that nature. To date, I don't believe the county has given them those funds, but they did approach other individuals in addition to this grant. Mr. Bateman.
Yes, the Women's Club pays property taxes.
Ms. O'Donohue.
So in the Economic Development Committee, so for these grants, does it specifically state that it has to be a or a for-profit business?
No.
So it doesn't say anywhere that it has to be a for-profit business.
And that's part of what I would like to see a little bit more specific, because you kind of have a general thought of what the economic development means in that. And I know we have revised it several times, but as I've done research, I find out we haven't really probably been as specific as we need to. And my thoughts were if I don't know how many charitable organizations that we would have that would come and ask for money, but let's say we did, then there's a lot more decisions that have to be made when you look at that entity.
But I think, yes, they're asking us for money, but they're not asking us to just give them money. They're asking us for the same thing that we've given to other businesses who have nothing to do really with our community.
And the grant is a structural improvement grant.
Correct.
That it was
We've given a
intended to help
structural
properties.
improvement grant to a farmer to just put something
not
in
gonna
their
go
building.
there.
Well, we are gonna go there. And
Well, good,
And then
because
this
that wasn't right.
This is actually a business that supports our community and supports people in our community. So I myself, I would be a yes vote if it was today, just because it is something in our community that helps the people of our community. So whether they're a for-profit or a non-for-profit, for me, it doesn't matter. They're actually here in our community and they're helping our community.
Well, we talked about it in committee. My thoughts were that they have a value-added part to our community. And if we were going to look at, we don't know what other charitable organizations might come forward. And we can't just use charitable as this is yes or no. Different charities are different in what they do. Capsule for our community does one heck of a lot. So I thought maybe we could establish a specific amount should we have other charitable grant, people request funds, and then use that rather than what we're using here. I don't want it to get to the point too where most people in Lincoln feel that this is to go toward some kind of business, whether a commercial where there's actually sales going on and taxes taken in and employees that are there for whatever purpose. I think that they feel like they deserve that because that's what the grant has been doing ever since it came around. So if we're down to what now? Chuck, do you remember how much we're down to now as far as this year that we have left in that fund? The structural grant fund. So we've got 29,000, and we've got how many months? 5? Let's see, March. About 6 months.
Mr. Hoblet.
So, Mr. Donahue, when that farm property, business property came up in the Economic Development Commission for discussion, I was there, and it was pretty contentious at the time because there was that exact question that was being bandied about is what's the economic purpose for this? The Economic Development Commission was established back in 2020, I think mainly between the meetings at that time leading up to the development. A lot of it was about the downtown businesses, but as the commission comes into existence and as it expands, it takes a life of its own. You'll see its own purposes, and those business properties were expanded to this city proper, not just the downtown businesses. The establishing ordinance did go to great length to outline that it was for the purposes repair structure in order to make the buildings usable for business purposes, which might cost a prospective commercial property owner find difficult. The ordinance is rife with reference to business and commercial property. I suppose the interpretation of what business and commercial property, we all know what commercial property means, but what would constitute business could probably either be narrowly tailored or as broad as you would like it for it to be. As I said, I do not have the current version of the application before me, so I don't know exactly what it states in its header there as for its exact intended purpose. I think what Mr. Rolfe is bringing forth is, in essence, an argument that was proffered at the Economic Development Commission and now is being put forth, I think, to the council as a whole. I don't believe I was present due to conflicts at the last Economic Development Commission meeting, so I'm not privy as to what was discussed there. But if I had to be a guessing man, I'm going to guess some of that's coming before what was discussed there is coming before you now.
What's the council want to do with this request? Okay. Place it on the regular agenda?
Mhm.
Okay. Place item number 6 on the regular agenda.
Thank you for your input.
Yeah, and a follow-up on that, I think we need to bring those concerns and things back to that committee and have them further discuss that and what the future of that program looks like. Because this isn't the first topic that's come up with that. As with everything, things evolve. It wasn't the intended nature of what the program started out as. But I think in all fairness to our applicants, that at the time that they apply, they should be able to apply with a general understanding of whether they are eligible or not. And I think we've got some work to do in that respect. Okay. The next item up is item number 7, request from Land of Lincoln CEO for pledge donation. If you look in the packet, you will see that we have received a request from the CEO program. I also distributed a book this evening. Mr. Eimer looked like it stopped on his desk. Maybe he can share it with the rest. It goes into the current class, the program itself, who the mentors are, the investors. It's got a financial report in the back so that you can see how they're spending the money and on what. So, thoughts and discussion on this topic? Mr. Barrett.
They usually come in and the, I don't know, the CEO, president, or whomever, they usually come in and do and ask themselves and not a presentation, but kind of an update on it. And I know that we have that here, but it's just one document. I would like to have seen them come in.
We can get them to come in. Were you able to reach out to Rachel? Okay, she's offered to come in on the voting meeting if the council would be interested.
I mean, it'd be nice to hear about it.
Yep, I agree, and it's a substantial ask, but the program's very valuable. It's got a smaller class this year, but that's okay. It some years there's more, some years there's less.
Do we have that budgeted?
The CEO program, I don't know if we budgeted for a 3-year renewal on that. Mr. Conzo, do you recall? I think we budgeted $1,000. That's the annual cost. So there is $1,000 in the budget.
The last time we voted, or you guys, the council voted it, they voted the 3-year, and they just came out of that last year, was that last $1,000 round.
It'll be the first year of the next 3 years.
Correct, correct. It's the same, yeah.
And this program is a, not just a Lincoln, this is like a community, like schools from like Pulaski and Olympia and some other.
Yeah,
schools.
they have surrounding communities, students from those communities.
Yeah, I'd be interested just to see where all of the students that this past year, where they came from, probably mostly from Lincoln, mostly is what happens.
Yep. It is budgeted for $1,000 and appropriated. Okay. So is the council okay with putting it on the agenda, and then we'll ask Ms. Judd to come forward? Ms. Bateman?
You need to specify what you want on the agenda, $1,000 or a 3-year?
I
Do
mean,
the 3-year
I think-
renewal.
the first year is already budgeted, so it's not like you're gonna spit out the 3,000 right up front.
let's put a 3-year renewal on it, and it can be amended if need be. We okay with that? Okay, we'll place item number 7 on the regular agenda.
Is there any way that we can ask them to do any kind of reporting throughout the year as to some of the projects that they're doing?
Sure, we can.
Craig and I were both at the American Legion
Mm-hmm.
when they had their little CEO thing, and I guess I had higher expectations of them explaining things.
Was it the road show, or was it their
Their year-end
business
thing where
project?
they have tables set up and displays and that.
Yeah, so it was that was really the culmination of the businesses that they worked and gained insight from their mentors on to develop. You want to be involved in the process along the way? Do you want people to come in and share? What?
To me, it's $1,000 as entrepreneurs. They should realize that along with money comes some type of reporting, and maybe throughout the year they could just come. This is what we're doing. Not every meeting, needless to say. But
Do you want the program representatives or the students to come in?
oh, the students definitely.
Okay.
Yeah, the students have
ask.
come in here before and spoke, as I recall, and I had asked at one point for the CEO to kind of share what these businesses were, which are in here, which I appreciate, and so that we as a community, if we can help promote, some of these businesses, we're an investor.
Yep.
I don't think we've got that yet, though.
We'll bring Miss Judd in next week, and then we'll establish a cadence with them to make periodic reports to us, similar to what we do with tourism. Okay. Moving on to item number 8, Rebuild Illinois MFT Resurfacing Project. Shane, do you want to speak since Walt's out?
Yeah, I'll speak to this. Walt had me put together the memo that you guys see before you. Guess my apologies for this just coming out today, but we were pressed for time. We didn't receive our final approval from IDOT on the rebuild portion of the two projects. That came in on Tuesday, September 10th, and we turned around and got on the September 12th contractor's bulletin. IDOT always publishes those on Thursdays. And we wanted to give the contractors time to bid, but yet we didn't want to wait what would be 3 weeks to get onto the next cow, because the next cow is a little bit later. We did receive 2 bids today for the 2 different projects, and they were good bids. The low bid was PH Broughton out of Springfield, and they were quite a bit lower than our estimate. On the Rebuild Illinois portion of this, our estimate was just under $542,000. Their bid was $411,614 and change. So ultimately, CMT would recommend that you guys move forward with awarding them the project. And then, as I put in the memo, requested an additional authorization up to $430,000 total. And that would just be in the event of, because this is an IDOT overseen project and everything's got to be approved through them. If they came back and questioned something or threw something out as far as being eligible for payment, this gives us a little bit of cushion there to go ahead and keep working and pay the contractor out without a bunch of back and forth. As far as the outstanding balance of your rebuild monies, that's listed in there. It's $541,974 and change. Obviously, this bid came in below that, which is good. Ultimately, the city's getting a lot of bang for their buck, which is good. However, that does pose a little bit of an issue as far as how we need to retool things and get that additional rebuild money spent. We had a same exact scenario happen for the Village of Chatham, where the village engineer down there. Same thing. We came in with our estimates, thought we would be on target, and they got competitive pricing, very good pricing. And we've reached out to IDOT just to see if we could add, say, another block onto an existing target. And unfortunately, they're not going to let us do that because it falls outside of the boundary that we set as far as the environmental clearances that we have approved. So what we're doing for Chatham and what we would ultimately recommend here is to go ahead and put together another bid package to try and take advantage of the pricing right now.
This is resurfacing all our roads this year? Is that what
That
this
is the goal is to get.
Like,
Yeah,
what,
so-
here in a couple, 2-3 weeks, or?
So the contract's set up to be a working day contract. Typically with roadway work, there's 2 different kinds. One, you can have a set completion date. The other is to have a certain number of working days, and IDOT has calculations you go through to calculate the number of working days to give a contractor. While this is resurfacing, and typically when you think of that, you think of asphalt, mill and overlay. There's quite a bit of curb replacement and sidewalk replacement, curb ramps that have to be done, especially since it's the IDOT portion of this. has to be up to all the ADA requirements. Anyway, we would foresee the contractors getting started this fall with all the all the concrete work. Work through some of their working days, but then have the balance of their working days in the spring to finish up the actual asphalt work.
So there won't be no oil and chipping this fall or anything like that, right?
The asphalt would be most likely in the spring. I mean, some of this depends on the weather, but as far as number of working days, IDOT has you allow for, say, 16 working days in October, 14 working days in November, and then like December, January, February, it's 0 because it's all weather related at that point.
Tracy, why do we always start so late in the year in this? You know, I worked at the street department. We did road work in June. Why are we doing this in October? I mean, I'm a little bit confused by all that.
We've talked and taken efforts to move it back even further.
To June?
The process has to work the way it does.
Right. So
We never used to, I guess. That's what I'm saying. I mean, this oil and chipping, I mean, even with concrete, you're getting into it's got a cure.
Shane, can you explain the process that we worked through and the efforts that were taken to alleviate this issue?
Yeah. So if we back up to a year ago, approximately, we had the sidewalk work that was bid, and we only received one bidder on that. And based upon what we were seeing on other projects, it seemed like there was low interest in contractors taking on additional work and higher bids because of that. So at that time, we advised Walt, because we were late in the year, to move the 2023 targets to be a 2024 project. And there were several on the council that expressed interest in getting that started as soon as we could in 2024. If you move forward, I guess I kind of went through some of our records and just so I could refresh my memory. Last October, we met with Walt to just start discussing our programming for 2024, including the additional resurfacing projects, oil and chip targets, sidewalks, and then potential projects for the Rebuild Illinois grant. And then in November, we got a preliminary list of resurfacing targets from Walt. We went out, did measurements, started putting packages together then. And then it was at that time that we started having conversations with Walt on using the rebuild money for Tremont Street. If you recall, I was here in the spring. We talked about that at length, but there's an issue with the historic property on Tremont Street that made getting all of the approvals in place to spend the rebuild money made that problematic. So then you move forward. We had some additional meetings with Walt in December, and then in early January, we decided to go ahead and make a formal recommendation to use the rebuild money for a resurfacing program. And with that, we went through and split out what from the 2023 targets and what new 2024 targets would best fit rebuild money versus local funds, because there's different requirements for that because of the IDOT oversight. I was here in February and presented a memo to the council to discuss those targets. It was at that time that the council asked me to go back and get additional information on Tremont Street, because there were several here that were very concerned that Tremont Street wasn't moving forward. From that point, at the end of February, you guys passed a resolution to use a mix of rebuild money and motor fuel tax money for resurfacing projects. And then I also presented additional information on Tremont Street as far as the different possible, if you remember, we had the partial reconstruction versus a full reconstruction, number of seasons that it would take, 1 season versus 2 season. We discussed that at length. And then in March, we came back in and CMT actually presented the different work orders to get that work squared away. That was approved in April. From there.
Can I ask a question? I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Didn't we also discuss not using the rebuild money because we wouldn't have to go through as many hoops at that point too for Tremont?
So Tremont Street, yes, because of that historic property.
Right.
To get both state and federal approval for the money, we thought it would be cutting everything too close as far as getting the
So we took the
money
rebuild
spent.
money out of Tremont at that point.
And
to-
elected to move it towards a bigger resurfacing program.
Correct. Okay, thank you.
Okay. So what you have here is the culmination of that direction that was provided in the spring. So once we got our work orders approved in April, we moved forward. We got our bid packages into IDOT in early July. Part of the process there was we had other projects into IDOT, and we were seeing what comments they were getting. So we were basically ramping up our Lincoln plans and specs to kind of cut off of those comments before we got them, just try and expedite the whole thing. It wasn't until the end of August, towards the end of August, that we got our first round of review comments from IDOT. We had to go back and verify a bunch of cross slopes on ADA curb ramps and that, because again, they're very particular about those. So we had to do some field work. We got the information back into them, and then we got the final approval from them in September. So, I mean, I know that's a lot of information, but there is a history for why we're talking about
Well,
this now.
you know, we got 4 seasons. And when you're doing road work, you should be doing it late spring, summer, and early fall, not in October, November. I mean, my experience out there, I mean, we had all our oil and chipping done by the end of July. And right now we got leaves coming down everywhere. And I don't know if any of you have done concrete work when leaves are coming down. I have. And it's a pain in the butt. You know, I mean, this is not the year or time of the year when you start getting October and November to be resurfacing roads. I mean, you got some have-to things that you have to do. I get, you know, emergencies or whatever, but some concrete work, but you're constantly fighting it. I mean, I just don't understand why this is always so late in the year. I mean, oil and chipping and asphalt, and when you're getting mid-October or further, is not good. So, can any of this be put towards spring, and can we do it in the spring, a lot of this, or do we have to spend the money now? I mean, I guess that's what I'm asking.
I don't know if there's restrictions on spending money. You can certainly push it.
I mean, because we're getting, I mean, time you get all the answers from the contractors, October 1st is next week. We're already in October. That's not good. I don't care what, because we got to start picking up leaves. We got a bunch of rain coming now. Hurricane coming up here through the weekend. I mean, the weather's not going to start cooperating too much. I mean, I just don't understand why we're redoing major roads. Think about it, oil and chipping works better when it's hot, not cold. Now we're getting down mornings in 50s and 60s. We might have a mild fall. I mean, I'm not saying some work can't be done, but when you start resurfacing roads that late, it's just not going to last as long. I've seen oil and chipping going down in October, and that road don't hold up very long. They don't. We need to do it. The hotter, the better. I mean, that's pretty obvious. So, I don't know. That's my thought.
Alderman Bateman and Alderman Downs.
I understand that the state moves slow and Tremont kind of put a wrench in it. But for the second time this evening, I'm going to, he agreed with me, I'm going to agree with Mr. Eimer. That, lightning strike me dead as I walk out of the building. But
Hug it out.
I've mentioned it before, and I think I speak for the council because I can go back on minutes when we all agree. We need to set some direction for Walt to work more with CMT on getting these things hammered down at the end of 24, so they're coming to us with targets for the resurfacing in 2025, either at the end of 24 or very early in 25. If that can't be done, and I wish Walt was here and he can answer next week, then we need to know why it can't be done, because we do need to go out early when the contractors are bidding vigorously to get more bang for the buck.
Mr. Downs.
Kevin essentially said pretty much what I was going to say.
I thought he said more.
He said it better.
And I think
Shane,
it's 2
how do
weeks
you-
when we meet next, right?
Shane, how do you recommend we accelerate?
So, so there's two issues. One are the bids that were received today and what we're going to do with those. And then two is how we proceed on future projects. So, which would you like to talk about first?
Well, is the council in favor of putting this, accepting this bid on the
Yes.
agenda, the regular
To
agenda?
accept this, do we have to do it in their
Well,
timeframe?
what do you mean accept the bid? Does that mean we gotta have the work done here in October, November?
Well, I guess we're gonna have to ask Shane about that.
So, again, this is a working day contract. As far as the IDOT portion of this, it has to follow all the letters of their requirements as far as temperatures, all that sort of thing. So, I don't foresee any asphalt being placed this fall. I see concrete work. I do not, because it's weather-based.
Yeah.
That was going to be my question: is who determines the working dates?
So there's working days that are charged to the contract. Basically, if the contractor chooses not to work those days, then he loses out, right? He's forced to make that up some other time. And then in the winter months, there's typically a winter shutdown. So typically what we would see in this scenario is the contractor would work until the weather starts getting such that he can't, it's no longer profitable for him to do that. He closes up for the winter, he comes back in the spring, is typically what we would see.
I think we need to specify something because the concrete work, yeah, we could get some of the curbs and the sidewalks and handicap stuff. But if we have, still fighting leaves coming down, getting in the concrete, but any kind of asphalt and the resurfacing, I don't think should be done this year. We're already too late. I mean, it's going to be middle of October.
So,
My
PH Broughton has their own asphalt plant, correct?
Correct.
Yeah, so PH Broughton, I don't have a problem with PH Broughton deciding whether they can do it or not weather-wise, because they own the asphalt plant where the asphalt's going to come from. So they've been around for decades and decades in Springfield. I'd like to put this on the voting agenda. I trust that the contractor, this is a very reputable contractor. I think they would do the work they know what the parameters they have to meet. We need to get some kind of work done this year, because we haven't done hardly any work this year. But moving forward, we need to move at a sooner than later pace. Quite honestly, we should start working on projects. We should start working on the 2026 street projects the minute this council votes to approve a budget in May of 25. That's my opinion. We should always be a step ahead. We know what money we got. We should start moving forward. So we're not playing this catch-up game or way late in the year. So it's kind of too late for that now. This is a very competitive bid. It came in well under what CMT projected. So I'd like to put this on the voting agenda to move forward, and then change the way we do things moving forward.
Mr. Barrett?
Yeah, this is 2 years disappointed, and I hope not for a third, but I don't have any, that's a lot of hope.
Shane?
Well, I mean, ultimately, I'd just like to remind everyone that the bidding climate is quite a bit different this year than last. I mean, with the sidewalk bids we opened 3 weeks ago or whenever that was, last year we had one interested contractor. This year we had 4, and what you guys are paying in sidewalk this year is less than what you paid last year, due to the competitive nature of pricing right now. So, I mean, I think what we see there is kind of what we got to see again today, that the city is getting a lot done for their money.
So then my question is, and I understand the frustrations of the council, but do you believe that the competitive bidding is based on the time of year in which they're bidding?
That's a good question. I don't know. I know when we put our cost estimates together, that's based upon pricing that was seen earlier this year, and it came in under that.
Okay.
You know,
Alderman Eimer.
you say the statement, we're getting a bang for our buck. Well, if the bang don't last, and because, I mean, if we do it in late in fall and it wasn't done right because of the weather or the temperatures or the time of year, then how much did we save? Because if it don't last, I've been watching what's going on around this town many years, especially the last 2 or 3, and I've been watching resurfacing going on in October and all that. These crews don't care. They don't care if they get the leaves and that. I've seen them shoot oil right over leaves and everything else. You think that's going to last? It ain't. It ain't. You have seasons in this state for a reason. And there's times with that street department or any construction, you do things by the seasons. I mean, can you pour concrete in December? You can. But let me give you an example of this. They poured concrete in December right out the Lincoln Street Department, and you have cracks this big everywhere in the floor. They poured it right in December and January on that cold ground, and there's cracks filled with caulk everywhere. That's an example. So, I don't know. I mean, it's a tough call. I know. I'm trying to see it both ways, but I've been watching this last couple of years, and it's like, I mean, I want roads done too. I mean, more than just as much as all of you. I do.
Yep.
Because we all hear it. But is it right to move forward and do it, even though it's wrong? What is right and what is wrong?
Mr. Hoblet.
That's the thing we got to ask ourselves, people.
I was just raising my hand earlier to remind the council members that if you do want to speak, please raise your hand for the mayor to be called upon. I know we're frustrated and whatnot, but in order to have a coherent conversation without people getting interrupted, I would just ask that we adhere to our procedure. That is all.
Okay. So the accepting the bid, I guess we're back to this question, are at the recommendation of Mr. Bateman, are we placing accepting the bid on the regular agenda?
Oh, that's right, the 30th is Monday.
So Shane, I think the ask that you need to take away from this and talk with Walt and get back to us on is to, I believe, Mr. Eimer, Mr. Bateman's point, given the nature of the seasons, even though we're approving the bid, can some of the work or will some of the work be done in the spring under the current bid?
Okay. Some of that we'll work with the contractor. This is a lot of work. I mean, between the 2 bids, it's a lot of work. So, and then as far as the IDOT portion of this, once it's approved here, it has to go to IDOT for reapproval, if you will, even though they know they have the resolution in hand, all those things. So I could see most of that work getting pushed to next year. It would be the locally funded stuff that they could start on.
Mr. Eimer?
So if we vote October 7th, then contractors may not show up to the 3rd week of possibly of October? Because you say it's got to go back to IDOT. Do you have an idea of what that could take, a week or 2 or days? Or
No, hopefully it doesn't take long, but again, we're moving at the speed.
Experience with them, what do you think?
So I don't know what to tell you.
So with that being said, it could be towards the end of October if, IDOT drags its feet,
well, you wanted to get ahead of schedule and start laying things in the spring.
Yeah,
Perhaps this is how that shift happens.
yeah, that's all I'm recommending. Is that we start earlier. I mean, at least Kevin and I agree on that. So.
You're either to get on the cycle that you want to get on, and not just you, other members of the council, you're either going to get a lot of work done in a short period of time in 1 year, or there's going to be a gap. It's one or the other. But the other question is, if you start doing it a lot in 1 year, what is the cost of doing that? And do we have the budget to support that? So Shane will get back to us on that one. Okay, before we move on, and in the interest of time, hopefully we can have a brief conversation. Can you give us a recommendation on how to get on a better cycle? Or would you prefer to talk with Walt first?
I mean, ultimately, Walt is that decision maker. He's the appointed person. We're certainly willing to work with Walt. What we've talked about in the past is instead of waiting until he had a budget set, to actually have the targets in hand and say, here are the targets, here's the ask, please, budget accordingly, to get out ahead of that. So we'll continue to work with Walt and try and push that forward.
I know
Mr. Reimer.
I know when I worked out there, we was prepping roads in March and April, getting ready for seal coat. That's how much in advance. I know it could be done. It's been done. So
Yep.
just
That was, to clarify,
Mr. Bateman.
that was the previous year's budget. What Shane's talking about, I brought up in a meeting, in conversations with Chuck and stuff before, is we're within 2 or 3% of what our budget is every single year. We can make an extremely good, educated guess, have them targets in March when the budget committee starts meeting in April, bring them numbers forward, and we budget accordingly instead of waiting till we pass a budget and then trying to figure out what we can fit in that budget.
Okay. All right. Let's move on to item number 9, capital project fund resurfacing project. Shane?
Yeah, so this is the second half of that memo. Pretty much the same story. 2 bidders. The idea was we'd bid these 2 projects together, the rebuild and the locally funded, bid them together, try and get more competitive bids. Again, PH Broughton was the low bid, quite a bit under our estimate. And again, UCM was over our estimate. Same situation as what we saw with the rebuild requirements. So with that, I think we put in there, allow for some additional expenditures to allow for some incidentals that may come up, including some patching and that kind of thing.
Okay. We okay placing this on the regular agenda? Okay. Okay, place number 9 on the regular agenda. Moving on to item number 10, discussion regarding ethics for elected officials, possibly an ethics committee. Mr. Sanders or Ms. O'Donohue? This is your topic.
Yeah, this is something me and Rhonda have been working on. Currently, we do not have a code of ethics for elected officials, and we've been seeing that more municipalities are putting these things in place, and we would like to put them in place to hold us responsible to the people that we represent with the way we act. Not just in here, it's out there, and I want this to be, this is not going directly at one person. This is, if I do something, I should be held responsible. Kevin does something, he should be held responsible. Rhonda or Craig or anybody does anything that does not represent the people that we represent responsible, we should be held accountable. And so we'd like to move this forward with this, and I think Rhonda has some.
So pretty much we've just kind of looked at the fact that we are elected officials, appointed people, but that doesn't mean that we're above any kind of law. And I think for the people that we represent, there has to be some accountability for us as well. I mean, if we're holding them to the standard of law, then we too have to be held to a better standard than what they are. So we've worked with Mr. Hoblet at lengths to kind of put together a code of conduct, and there has to not just be a code of conduct that we say we're going to be adhering to too. I mean, there's going to have to be some sort of penalties that come with it if we choose to ignore the code of conducts as well. So
Mr. Reimer?
Do we have something like this in place for employees or department heads?
We have an employee handbook.
Yeah, does it got code of ethics for on duty and off duty also?
It addresses the behavior of employees.
Off duty?
I don't think it addresses them
Well,
off duty.
We're gonna, and I'm not saying I'm against this, but if we're gonna do, were we 24/7, then don't you think we should do it for everybody?
I think well, I'll let the lawyer speak.
Now, we have various things within our city personnel manual, like say talking about social media, which does contemplate on, and when you're off duty. I don't have it in front of me, but if I'm a betting man, typically it also refers that you will conduct yourself. Most city personnel manuals that you'll conduct yourself in a manner, that wouldn't embarrass. I'm just paraphrasing. That wouldn't embarrass the city when you're off premises, when you're off duty. That's pretty standard. But again, I don't have it in front of me, so I think our city clerk maybe just pulled something out there. So she might be trying to ascertain that right now at the moment. But I think there is issues that need to be addressed. I believe I know what these guys are saying, that there's issues that need to be looked into. To be honest, there's pending issues right now that need to be addressed with the ethics committee that will be conducting via investigation. I presume once they have been officially instated as an ethics committee. So there's work that needs to be done in regards to ensuring that all elected officials are conducting themselves in a manner that is expected of them on and off city council meetings.
So everybody should have got an email that last week I decided to form a ethics committee. Did everybody get that email? Okay. So I believe I put that in the email, Mr. Sanders and Ms. O'Donohue to that. So they have been working with Mr. Hoblet. They've been addressing this particular topic. And that action was really done because the council, the intention of the code of ethics is to hold the council accountable to each other. And I felt that 2 aldermen should run that committee. I would actually like, if the council were supportive, to codify that committee and make it an actual committee by code. But for now, it stands as a committee in the format that it is. Ms. McClellan.
I just had a couple of questions I don't know, I feel might need to be clarified. F talks about unexcused absences, and we might need to define what is an unexcused absences and who is the person, or what is the whatever that would say this is unexcused or this is excused. We probably need to put something in there that kind of clarifies that, maybe, because we would need to know what an unexcused absence is, maybe a definition of that or something. Also, E, I was kind of confused about who they was in E, just language-wise.
Oh yes, it's a draft for you guys. It's not final, so.
I just a couple of things. You want me to share those with you then?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Okay. So, Mr. Bateman.
Well, I don't have my employee handbook in front of me where I work, but I know we have a thing, and the city attorney could, unless he wants me to research and email it to him. most companies, especially companies of size, have code of ethics for their employees. Some of the wording, and I'm just shooting off the top of my head here, is like to conduct not unbecoming that would embarrass the company or cause the company to fall in some kind of legal course in a court of law. For instance, shouldn't wear your uniform out. When you're running errands is one thing. You don't park a city truck and then go to the bar and sit there. That's just not right. Mrs. Bateman will attest that I've changed my shirt plenty of times going to other public functions, not wearing the Landmark shirt. I don't plan on embarrassing the company sitting here. I don't plan on it. May happen someday. But those kind of things. I mean, we can do some research. I guess what I'm getting at is the code of ethics for the council needs to be more in-depth because, yes, we are elected officials who represent constituents and the city 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, regardless. Where the employee portion is, and maybe we do have it in our book. I know we don't open them things up very often. There's probably cobwebs on them, and we don't. One thing I want to say is we don't renew it very often. We need to do that more often. There has to be a code of ethics if you're an employee of the city, and I'm sure we could put stuff like that in there. Now, whether that needs to happen in this code of ethics committee, I don't believe so. That should be something that's discussed. It could be discussed in that committee, but then it needs to be brought forward for the entire council to put in the employee manual. This code of ethics we're talking about now doesn't go in the employee manual. It is I'd like to codify it, as the mayor said, that when you raise your right hand and take the oath of office, that is something you're agreeing to, is that code of ethics. And we have to hold each other accountable. We can't keep going down the path where one person goes out on a limb and does something, and then the rest of us get phone calls and questions and all that kind of stuff, and trying to figure out what's right and what's wrong. So I think it needs to be two separate things, but I also think both of them are very important.
Mr. Parrott?
Yeah, I agree. This is, I mean, you can way deep into the weeds on this because, let's say you got a DUI or something to that effect, or you got you got arrested for, a high rate of speed through town or whatever. How does the code of ethics work in that scenario? I'm not for sure. I mean, ultimately, we're elected officials, and ultimately, the people who we represent have a decision at the next ballot not to vote you back in. I mean, that's the ultimate, I guess, holding someone accountable.
Mr. Downs and then Ms. McClellan.
Yeah, so a couple things. First off, I'm a big fan of this, so thank you, Rhonda and David, for working on this. But with that being said, a lot of these ethical issues they're not black and white issues. So that's just, and I know that you guys all know this. I'm just saying it. I don't really know why, but it's not black and white. So it's just going to be a little bit harder to address. The first number one on the code of conducts is that you'll conduct yourself in a respectful manner. My definition of respectful might not meet the same as everyone else's here. And I guess I just wanted to bring that up for awareness. I do think this is something that we need to do, but I think it's going to be easier said than done. And that's all I want to say.
Ms. McClellan.
I had a question too about the personal relationships wording. I'm not sure what kind of, we're elected to be city officials, and I'm not sure that we can regulate what anybody does outside of their city official duties. I'm not sure how that works, or whether that's, that seems like a little bit of what Sam just said. there's nothing that you can, it doesn't seem like you can put a black and white to that. It seems like it's something that's a little, would be hard to define. But yeah, I would just want to make sure that if we're going to delve into something that says personal relationships, that we're on the right side of that, be able to, that we're on the right side of that regulation, that we can do something like that. So.
Chief.
Just to address the concerns of the council regarding employee standards of conduct and code of ethics, we do have the city employee handbook, but I want everybody to make sure that they're aware, and I only speak for the police department here. We have a policy manual aside from that, specific to the police department, that's nearly 1,000 pages long. That includes a lot regarding standards of conduct and code of ethics. So that does exist for our employees. And again, only speaking for the police department. I don't know the policies of the other departments. A lot of the language I think that was brought up in this proposal is very similar to what I'm familiar with from that policy manual. Things like personal relationships. We're prohibited from having a personal relationship with a known felon or, specific things like that are lined out. So I just wanted to share that with you guys.
To me, that just makes sense. If you can clarify it, if you can see where it affects city business and you can clarify it, then that, to me, that makes sense. But, otherwise you're just making a judgment call, and that, I can see that it can probably be done. It just needs to be worked on a little bit, maybe.
Mr. Eimer.
I can see where we can also pick and choose who we want to hold ethics to and who we don't also. I mean, we're elected by the people. We're not elected by individuals up here. So now where you're getting into the freedom of speech outside of this council, or somebody gives a strong opinion on an issue that somebody just don't like, now they're in front of this committee. I mean, that's no disrespect to Rhonda or Mr. Sanders, but who are they to be judge and jury? I mean, as far as bringing it to them and deciding of whether something was, I'm assuming if it's something that's said, or I mean, how do you decide the severity of incident? Because I know of some incidents that's happened throughout the city over the last couple of years that has been completely wrong, and nothing was done about it. Not a thing was done about it. And so now all of a sudden we're going to target elected officials, which, I mean, when we're up here, yes, we have to conduct ourselves professionally. I get that. But if one of us is out there not breaking the law, and we voice something that maybe one of you guys don't like, now we're going to burn them. Does that make that right? You guys didn't vote that person in. The people did. Or say you. You're targeted a lot, Tracy. Obviously, you're the mayor. You know how it goes. So where is this? What kind of slippery slope are we getting on here? Where's the parameters of this going to be? And then if there's somebody is not liked on the council, everybody else could say, well, we're going to ram that ethics thing right down on them. I don't. And then you've taken away the people's vote. The people put that person there.
Yeah, I don't.
If they didn't break the law or they didn't do something criminally or whatever, then how? I'm a little confused of what actions would be taken.
Well, a couple things, and then Mr. Hoblet can speak. Just my opinion on the matter is that this isn't uncommon. There are other municipalities that do this. Nothing in here, with the exception of 10 or more unexcused absences, would even venture into the creation of a vacancy or anything. So your constituents are represented.
Oh, so you're saying a lot of this is focusing on absenteeism?
No, I'm saying that's item number F in here. You were concerned about, well, then everybody could go after a certain alderman. Well, there's a committee, and then the committee would actually do whatever the committee does, and then they would bring it to the council. So it wouldn't be that committee being judge and jury. It would be,
So you're saying that the committee could bring it to the alder, and then what do you do? Remove the alderman for
There's-
maybe something that was.
there's
said
no provision in here to remove you. The absence thing does state that. I don't know if that can even be done, but the rest of the stuff is just basically saying these are the actions that we're going to hold ourselves to.
Right, right.
And the council could bring that up as a matter of issue, I think. But I'll let Mr. Hoblet talk.
And being, I guess Mr. Hoblet can explain
Yeah.
what the result of that would be.
So there's only a few things that the state of Illinois authorizes removal. It's not even a removal. It just creates a vacancy. And one of them is, some of them are, when there's like too many absences within the respective given period of time, which is again a nebulous aspect here. Does not. Then that creates a vacancy. If the council member owes a debt to the city, that debt remains unpaid, then that creates a vacancy because you cannot represent the municipality from which you owe a debt to. Similar, like if you're convicted of a felony, then that creates a vacancy. Now, to get back to your, people elected, the council members, yes, but that does not give the council member, the go-ahead to run roughshod over the various city departments that we have here. If a council member is going around to various departments, disrupting work sites, being in essence a nuisance, then the city has to undertake certain efforts. There has to be an investigation. Things have to be done. The city has to protect itself. If the council member is going out and being a bad actor, because there might be a lawsuit one day that might result out of that, and then it becomes incumbent upon the city as to what remedial efforts did they take? Did they do nothing? Did they issue a cease and desist? Did they find this individual? Did they censure this individual? If nothing results, if nothing of that happens, then the city put themselves in a rough spot in regards to that. And we have no, what we would call affirmative defenses. So to that extent, for certain council members, you have to undertake certain efforts to stop them, even if it results in a stalking no contact order to where they can't go to those respective places anymore. So these are the type of efforts that now it becomes apparent that the city needs to undertake, and the city needs to undertake itself in order to protect itself. Hence the need for the ethics, which were not previously necessarily needed before, but we find ourselves needed now.
So basically, if I understood you right, and correct me if I'm wrong, aldermen, we have no power to check on a job site. We have no power to go to a department, it sounds like. Not quite for sure what we're doing up here other than voting. I mean, you're saying that a department could say, oh, well, I don't like him coming out. And, we got constituents that come to us to complain about certain things, and then we go out there to check it out, and maybe a department doesn't like that and say, well, we're going to get them run out of here. So there again, we're elected by the people to get involved. These aldermen up here for years were in charge of committees. They got involved with the departments. They got involved with employees. They got involved with all of it. And correct me if I'm wrong, John, but if I'm understanding you, then you're saying, no, that's gone. Am I wrong?
Mr. Hoblet.
Oh, no, definitely not. I would say it is very much probably the purview of the council members to be involved. To be involved in the respective departments, but it's not the council members to show up to various departments and proclaim that they are their boss and to scream and yell at them. That is not the issue, and that is not what the council is supposed to do.
Has this happened? Has this happened, John?
There needs to be an investigation, Mr. Reimer.
Ms. McClellan.
To me, and I'm just saying, to me, this is common sense, and this is what I would do if I had an issue. If I had an issue, I would go to the department head and I would talk to the department head first and see if you can't get to some kind of conclusion or some kind of, there's a hierarchy, and sometimes it causes confusion and issues if you skip the hierarchy and just go to, and then, because then the person in charge doesn't necessarily know what's going on. And it's courtesy, if nothing else, just to talk to the person who's in charge first. And then, that kind of cuts down on confusion. So business rules or courtesy might say do that first. Just wanted to put that out there.
This is in no way trying to stop people from doing their job as an alderman. What it is doing is saying we expect a certain level of conduct when you do show up to these job sites. The way you act is a representative of the city. That's all this is. This is holding us accountable.
But that's just one piece of this code of conduct.
Yes.
And that's what we're talking about here, right?
Yes.
A passage of a code of conduct and a comprehensive code of conduct. So how does the council feel? Would you like to
Regular
place it on the regular agenda?
Yes.
Ms. Rolfs?
Well, we've got 2 weeks, don't we?
We do, but if you have something you'd like to state.
Well, no, I haven't read it.
Oh, okay.
So I need to read it, but I don't want to say, okay, let's vote on it next week.
Well, you have
There
2
may be
weeks.
questions that I would want to ask before.
If there are any questions, I would reach out to Mr. Hoblet, Mr. Sanders, or Ms. O'Donohue. Mr. Hoblet?
So as indicated, there is a draft. There is 2 weeks. I encourage Ms. McClellan already indicated she wanted some draft changes. She made some good points. Ms. Rolfs, if you would do as well, then I suggest contacting me.
Okay, we'll place this on the regular agenda.
Mr. Mayor?
Mr. Conzo?
Question, just for purposes of the agenda, are you putting both the resolution and the ordinance on the agenda?
Yes. Ms. Bateman?
Just for Mr. Alderman Eimer, you asked about the handbook, and yes, there is it says guidelines for appropriate conduct in the handbook that the city employees have.
How detailed does that get, Peggy?
Page worth. I can email it to you tomorrow if you want.
Yeah, can you?
Yep.
Thank you.
We got
Could you email it to all of us?
Everybody?
Yep. I will.
Thank you.
Ms. Rolfs?
Well, I guess my question is kind of a big umbrella question. Are we being asked then to supervise each other?
You're not
Well, I mean,
holding, I think,
if she said something horrible to me and I didn't like it, but I didn't take it, well, she was in a bad mood, whatever, do I go and say, to me, that was very disrespectful? And I expect that person to be
I mean, if you
dealt
felt,
with?
if you felt you were being disrespected, yes. You could take it
That's
to
what
the
we're
ethics
supposed to do.
committee. They could look into the matter. I believe that there's actually an issue going on in a surrounding community now. I believe it's Springfield, where an alderman spoke, I haven't seen the video, but the way it's been explained to me, spoke in a disrespectful manner to a member of the public during meetings. They are having conversations about that particular alderman.
I just hate to be
Was it-
the person that's supposed to be the watchdog for my fellow aldermen.
I don't think you're being a watchdog. I think you're holding each other accountable to ensure the standards that council members should be held to as leaders of the community. It's okay to say that we believe that there might be a problem. If the council as a whole decides to take action, well, let me back up. If the ethics committee believes that there's enough information to warrant bringing it to the council, then the council can have a conversation about that. And the council can say yes or no, we don't believe that it warrants action.
Are you part of that council thing too? I mean, are you involved, or is it just us?
I personally, that's a great question. That's why I put 2 aldermen in charge, to remove me from that equation. so that the council holds itself accountable. And it's not just me bringing allegations to the council that have been shared with me by others. You guys should be able to have conversations with each other.
Let's say that you said something to me that I found disrespectful.
Sure.
I can't say anything about you, right?
You can say
'Cause
anything
you're
you
not
want
part of
about
the
me.
council.
If you would like to make the mayor a part of it, put it in there.
I mean, I'm not saying that you would. Don't get me wrong, but you know, you weren't mentioned, so I thought, well, where does Tracy fit with all of this?
Well,
Elected officials.
the language is specific. It's alderman.
Anybody whose
Well, she
name
said
is on a
elected.
ballot.
She said elected officials, so that would be Peggy and Chuck. Yeah.
Well, that's why I'm saying that language, Mr. Oblett.
Not even Mr. Hopper.
It's in the council section of the city code, so it is the aldermen and alderwomen.
So now we're gonna exclude 3 members that sat up here. You, her, and him. Is that correct? You said elected.
He's not elected.
Oh, I'm
He's
sorry.
a
You're appointed.
contractual employee.
Yeah.
But
they're
to point
elected
that out, they don't have a vote. So if one of us 6 does something that's
8.
egregious,
8.
8, does something that's egregious, and the ethics committee brings it forward, and quite honestly, in the bylaw, it needs to say if one of the ethics committee does something egregious, then another councilman can bring that forward. Let's make it fair here. Then the actions taken against that alderman is only voiced and discussed amongst the other aldermen.
So let me give you a scenario. Because this has happened in the past. We had a council member who made statements on social media. I was contacted and said, and they said, I want that person taken care of. My response was, they're an elected official. There is nothing you can do about an elected official. So I would just put this out there to think about over the next 2 weeks. Going to Mr. Eimer's point, the people of Lincoln elected us, right? If the people of Lincoln has a concern, not just us, but if the people of Lincoln has a concern, they felt that they weren't treated properly, are we or are we not doing a service for them by creating a channel for them to air their issues with the council?
Chuck, I'm running for your position.
So you'll be exempt, right?
Because in
maybe you
that
too,
scenario,
Peggy.
I believe there was another scenario very similar to that. That's, I mean, imagine being on the receiving side of that and saying, and the answer that comes out of City Hall from the people that you appointed and the leaders of the community, I'm sorry, there's nothing we can do to help you.
But I agree with you on that. I do. And I'm not totally against some ethics, but there's also, and I know this from experience, that people have gotten away in other areas that have said things that was never dealt with. And then also people making reports can exaggerate or whatever. So, yeah, I mean, if there's something legitimate, I mean, obvious, and there's, but I just wonder what kind of door we're opening up here is all I'm questioning.
And that's valid. But I would say, and not to discount what you've said, because I do hear you, but just because it's been done that way in the past doesn't mean that we shouldn't try to improve on how we move forward. Mr. Barrett.
Can we make it for elected officials rather than just the aldermen, alderwomen? I mean,
Sure, I would
we
have to
can
reinsert
easily-
the same language for in the city clerk section and the treasurer section, so they would expand the ordinance quite a bit.
Sorry. It says mayor
And mayor.
council. It currently, as you got it written here, it's both, doesn't it?
Change language to elected officials. That's all of us sitting in this room.
Or maybe I
All of
could,
us sitting around.
maybe I'll,
They're not
sitting
elected.
around
maybe I'll
here
move it
except
over
for
to
John.
the actual commission section within our city code and remove it underneath the alderman. So that way make it applicable to all elected officials, because there is a commission section in our in committees under our city code.
If you
So.
create an ethics committee, that seems
Yeah.
like an appropriate place
And
to put it.
I hate to say one more thing, because I know we were trying to wrap things up, but if we're gonna do elected officials, should we do elected and appointed? Because,
No,
I mean,
appointed or held by the, yeah,
John don't fall under anything.
he's a contracted employee.
So, okay, and
he
nothing
doesn't-
personal against John, I'm just using your example because you're sitting here. But if we had a lawyer here that decided he wanted to say whatever he wanted to say, does that make it right?
Then you could bring,
We have a 30-day out clause to cancel his
you
contract.
could bring his conduct forward and remove him for his actions.
I didn't know if there was, okay, I'm just,
Yeah.
if we're doing accountability, let's do it all the way around the room.
Contracted employees typically have language in their contracts to address that. Appointed individuals are actual employees of the city, and therefore they're bound by the employee handbook and any policy specific to their department. This is just a gray area with elected officials. We ask everybody else to operate by certain standards, and then we have the luxury of not doing so. And I think that as times change, it's just imperative that we start taking that seriously. Okay. So we'll place that on the regular agenda. Mr. Hoblet will bring back a modification that states elected officials and not aldermen, alderwomen. It's all of us. Brings us down to announcements. I'll probably miss something because I'm tired. But the only announcement I have is, and Miss Metelko left, but I really wanted to thank Miss Metelko for Movie in the Park, the movie night. I say we probably had 60 or so people there. We had some food vendors that came out. The DARE program came out, did a great job as well, providing free hot dogs and drinks for everybody. Yes, we did have a little issue with the generator. We had to restart. It was in the bed of the side by side, and all of the CO2, the carbon monoxide, could not get out, and that generator had a kill switch on it to stop that. So it just shut everything down. So once we changed it and got it moved around, everything was fine. So, and then, those aldermen and individuals that helped from the city, Walt was pretty instrumental. Lincoln Rural Fire they provided a light. And then the Lincoln Park District, we couldn't have done it without them because we used their screen and their sound system, and it just made it a really good event. So thank you, everybody. Mr. Parrott and then Mr. Heimer.
Yeah, there was a ribbon cut on Saturday for the Rail Splitter Festival, and I thought I saw some aldermen out there as well, and so it was good to see those individuals that could go out. And unfortunately, I think Sunday was kind of a raining on their day there, but Saturday for the most part was a pretty decent day for spectators and individuals. So it was really good to be out there.
Yep, Mr. Heimer.
Just a quick question on the Sangamon Street closure with the fire building and all that. And where we at with trying to get that cleaned up and trying to get roads open again?
Mr. Woodhull.
Pretty much the same as we were last week. We're working on trying to get it dealt with. The brick was pushed into a pile to get it off the streets, but we can't remove it at this time. It's not our building. It's not our property. At this point, all we can do is secure the streets.
There's no way of making it safe?
That's as safe as we can make it at the moment. The streets are blocked off to prevent people from accessing a potentially dangerous situation.
Well, how do we proceed to try and get...
It's not that nothing's going on. There are things that we have to work through to identify ownership. We have to identify liability.
We know who the owner is, don't we?
Well, we do, but there's also liability. There's insurance questions that have to be asked. And so until some of those questions are asked, answered, and vetted, Mr. Woodhull cannot move forward. Once he has those answers, he will bring back, and believe me, we're pushing to get this done because we don't want those streets blocked off any longer than they have to. But the facade of that building on Sangamon Street already fell into the street. Thank God nobody was hurt or injured. The side that's on Pulaski Street, it has the potential to do the same thing. So that's why it continues to be barricaded. They've even boarded up a window of a business across the street should it fall, so it doesn't damage at least their windows. So they are working. There's a lot of people involved, and we're trying to get it done as fast as we can. And Mr. Woodhull will bring it back to you. Maybe by the next time we meet in 2 weeks, we'll have answers for you, or sooner. Anything else to add, Wes? Do you want to give an update on the mural too? The wireframe for the mural? You don't?
The frame should hopefully be complete this week. We're working on, we got to get a crane in to set it and everything, so weather doesn't look real good the rest of this week, but the frame is almost done. And then basically we have time frame to get that set, then schedule, then we got to apply all the panels also, so step one is, or not step one, but one step is almost complete, so hopefully this week. The framing should be done, not raised, but done as far as assembly, ready to go.
Okay.
It's moving quicker than it seems, I suppose.
Mr. Bateman?
I know this mural was expensive, and traveling around the state of our Illinois and a bunch of little towns, Mrs. Bateman and I travel little towns. That's what we like to do. There's a lot of really nice murals in a lot of little towns. I really wish the city or we could come up with a funding mechanism for creating more of these or touching up the ones we have. Like for instance, the penny that's painted on the side of the thrift shop. That's got some big scuff marks in it. If we could just get that touched up. But what I was going for was, and I mentioned this to Steve, I think if I didn't, Steve, I'm sorry, I thought of it. I like the frame idea because then that gives us an option to paint additional murals that we could change out. Instead of it being on a building, like if we paint one for, a Christmas themed one or whatever, we could change those out. So I really do kind of like the frame idea up against a building. If we find other buildings, we can do that, or other locations. I really like that idea. Obviously, we're going to lose a really good mural, the Capone mural on the side of that building. So quaint little towns, you drive through them, you notice those things, and there's some really nice. We were in Pontiac this weekend. It's a really nice, quaint downtown with a lot of unique features that I think we could capitalize on.
Okay. Any other announcements? Okay. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
The motion was made by Alderwoman O'Donohue and
Second.
Alderman Parrott, second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed. Meeting is adjourned at 8:11 p.m.